Hey, I'm Jason Garrison. I'm with Anthony Cosenza. We're from CincyJungle.com. We're going to be talking some free agency today. The free agency for the NFL kicks off tomorrow, Tuesday, March 12th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Players are still allowed to talk to other teams now. They've been able to talk to other teams since March 9th, but they won't be able to sign with other teams except for their own until March 12th. So some big news, obviously, today all around the AFC North, but the biggest probably today has been the fact that the defending Super Bowl champion, Baltimore Ravens, who won the AFC North last year, and I think maybe like the last 30 years before that, they traded Anquan Boldin, wide receiver Anquan Boldin, to the San Francisco 49ers for a 6th-round pick, and that's it, which was surprising but not surprising. Anthony, what do you think?
Well, the value that was given to the Ravens for him was a little surprising. I mean, I kind of figured he would have garnered a little bit more of a higher draft pick there. I mean, not talking a 2nd-round pick or anything like that, but really, I guess by reports, all that they were offered were either 6th-round picks or 7th-round picks. So you got to take what you can get. It was kind of surprising to me because you didn't hear much about the trade talk so much with Boldin. It was mostly either cut or restructure, and I don't know if he's gonna be forced to do that in San Francisco. But San Francisco's been loading up on wide receivers lately. They had Randy Moss last year. Mario Manningham was a pickup. They also drafted A.J. Jenkins. I believe at the end of the 1st round last year, who seems to be a promising player. So I don't know. That team just keeps stacking themselves up, and they got another high pick, I think, or more for Alex Smith. So they've set themselves up pretty nicely. And then kind of an arms race in that division today because Percy Harvin also went to Seattle for a much higher pick. So. Teams are doing some stuff, and here we are talking about the Bengals, and they're not in that same discussion really so much right now. But big move for the Niners. Definitely helps the Ravens in their books. I mean, it takes off at like $5 million or $6 million, I think. Yeah. So,
I'm like you. I'm kind of surprised that they had talked about releasing him or trying to renegotiate his contract. They hadn't really speculated on trading him at all. So the news that he was traded today was surprising just because it came out of the blue, but it's not really surprising when you consider that because Boldin decided to reject their offer to renegotiate his contract to cut his pay, it's basically it's going to come down between we're going to have to release him and we're going to get nothing for him, or we're going to have to trade him and get whatever we can. And I think that's the thing with the teams offering 6th and 7th-round picks. Obviously, Boldin's worth a lot more than that. In my opinion, he's worth much more than Percy Harvin is, even though he's older. But I think the big thing with him is the teams that are trading for him know that if you're not going to take our deal, you're just going to release him and you're not going to get anything. So you're going to have to take something. And you're right about San Francisco. They're stacked at the wide receiver department now. Boldin's a great target. He's a really reliable guy. He's a good possession receiver. He's big body. He's a big target for Colin Kaepernick. And I don't know if they're going to be able to keep everyone out there, but you got Crabtree, you got Moss, you got all those guys. It's going to be, you're going to have, if Kaepernick has a good season next year, they should be able to move the ball down the field through the air easily.
Yeah, and going back to the value of Harvin really quick. I mean. I think that what was given up for him was high, but I still think he's a valuable guy because of his age and just all the different things he can do on the field. Returnability, you can line him up as a halfback, line him up in the slot, line him up outside. He brings a high amount of value to a team. I don't know if it's to the extent that what Seattle gave up, but Seattle again was a very competitive team and. They last year, and they felt that move could push them over the top potentially, and they seem to be pretty stacked themselves now.
They do, and I agree with you. I know Percy Harvin's worth he's worth a lot. The only reason I said I think that Boldin is worth more is because Boldin is produced on the field, and Harvin has to an extent. He's had big plays here or there, but he hasn't put up 1,000 yards receiving. He may have one season or so. He's been injured a lot, but Bolden year in and year out has been at 1,000 yards or just under, as long as he wasn't injured.
Yeah, and he shows up clutch. I mean, that's the big situations. That's what I see with Bolden.
That was the big thing with the playoffs. He had, out of the 4 playoff games the Ravens played in this year, he had 2 100-yard games. He had like 4 touchdowns.
Right.
His biggest game was 140-something yards in the wild card game, and then he had another 104 yards in the Super Bowl, touchdowns in each of those games. So, when Joe Flacco needed him, Anquan Bolden was there, and I think they're going to miss him. I'm not going to miss him. Wide receivers really, it's kind of funny how I think after this offseason, because the cap situation the Bengals are in, the best wide receivers are going to be in Cincinnati. I mean, Mike Wallace, I think, is all but gone out of Pittsburgh. I posted earlier today, I think that we all saw that Miami Dolphins are expected to land Mike Wallace when free agency begins. Josh Cribbs is probably out in Cleveland. He's not, he's not the caliber of wide receiver you have with Bolden or Cribbs, but he's talented. He's fast. So really, we're the only team that aren't hemorrhaging wide receivers right now, so which is nice.
Here's a question: would you like to see the Bengals pull the trigger on one of those moves that we saw today on either Harvin or Bolden?
Not so much on Harvin. I think that we kind of have that guy that Harvin has, and guys like Andrew Hawkins. And, you have those little slot receivers. I don't think Harvin is really – I mean, he's got the speed to play on the outside, but I don't think he really has the size. I wouldn't have minded having Bolden, but obviously, the Ravens aren't going to trade him to a division rival, I wouldn't have minded having him, but I think there's other wide receivers to have, and we got the cap space for him, but you could find somebody younger who's going to produce just as much that's going to be a lot cheaper. So a wide receiver I don't think is nearly as big of a issue as some of the other positions are. So, but James Harrison's another big name that he was released by the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. He's floating around. He's quite a bit older. I don't know if he's broke quite yet because of the amount of fines he's had to pay out. He might be close, but I think he's probably the most fined player in the NFL.
Deservedly so, though.
Yeah, he's been voted over and over again as one of the dirtiest hitters in the league, and he's aggressive though, and he's one of those players that, for the most part, I think fans like having him on their team. Ndamukong Suh is voted as a dirty player, and he has he's been fined a lot, but I don't think there's any Bengals fan that wouldn't welcome Suh to the defensive line. He's the kind of player that brings that attitude that hopefully Burfict brings next year. That's one of the reasons I liked Burfict. But James Harrison was released. The Browns haven't really, as far as I know so far, haven't really started throwing players away. The Steelers and the Ravens were both hard-pressed with the cap this year, so they've had, like I said, the Steelers are going to lose Mike Wallace. They've lost James Harrison. They're going to lose quite a few players. The Ravens, they paying Joe Flacco $800 billion for the next 6 years is going to be that set them back when it comes to re-signing their free agents, and obviously is one of the reasons they've lost Bolden now. But, it's free agency doesn't really kick in tomorrow, and why don't we kind of jump into that? What are you expecting to see, at least from the Bengals' perspective, starting at 4 p.m. tomorrow?
What I'm expecting and what I'm hoping to see are two different things. Expectations, I do think they have some sort of ace up their sleeve in terms of a relatively big name out there. At least I'd like to think so. I don't know exactly who that would be. I don't think it's as big of a name as Greg Jennings. I think we kind of heard today that our friend over at the Cincinnati Enquirer, Joe Reedy, kind of shot that down through some of his sources that he had. So I don't think that that's one of the guys that maybe they're looking at, but I could see a mid-tier wide receiver, maybe a guy that has some returnability. I can see them definitely re-signing a good portion of their guys. I think that's their big focus. The Andre Smith thing is up in the air. I don't know that he returns, to be honest with you. I think you and I had just talked about that a couple minutes ago. I don't know what to expect from him. He's seeming to. It sounds like he's wanting a huge contract, and some people think he's deserving of it. Others think he's deserving of still a good contract, but not the $8 to $9 million a year type of contract. But They'll probably be relatively quiet the first couple of days, maybe signing one or two of their own guys. My problem, and I'd like to get your thoughts on it. My problem is, most people are kind of resigned to the fact that they're just going to look to retain their own guys, extend a couple of others, and definitely you want to do that. I mean, that's what you got that cap space for, and you got to use it to keep some of your core guys. However, if you do that, how are you really getting better as a team? It seems as if you're kind of staying status quo. Extending guys that how much better? I mean, I know they're in their third or fourth year. How much better are Geno Atkins and AJ Green really going to get? I mean, I know the sky's the limit kind of for those guys, but I mean, AJ last year, he had I don't have the stats right in front of me, but 90 catches or so. Well over 1,000 yards. He had an outstanding year. So my point is there's still other holes that need to be filled. Yeah, you can fill those in the draft. Sometimes that takes a couple of years to pay off for you as a team. So the attitude of just retaining your own guys, to me, kind of sounds like hey, we're happy with the status quo. A couple wins over 500 and won it out in the playoffs, and that's not very appealing to me following this team. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I think that the way the Bengals have built the team, I hate the glare. This is really making me mad now. I just can't see. But
I'm in the dark, and you're super bright over there.
I think the way, and I look so weird without glasses on.
Nah, but you're good.
I think the way that the Bengals have built their team over the last few years has been with the draft. They haven't really, aside from maybe one or two guys, they haven't really signed any big-name free agents. Terrell Owens comes to mind, and that's the end of his career anyway. But you might want to count Reggie Nelson.
But he's their own guy.
Right, well, when they signed him to begin with. Well, they traded for him, so it doesn't really count. I think that the draft has been their plan over the last few years. I think it's worked out okay for them. I think maybe signing a big-name free agent might be what they need to kind of get over that hump and get out of the first round of the playoffs, and kind of get into the divisional round and beyond. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening, even though they have the money to spend. If they really wanted to get in a bidding war with 90% of the teams in the NFL, they'd win, just because they have so much money to throw at people. So it's kind of a shame that they seem to not really want to spend it, or not. Maybe it's not even that they want to; they just feel like maybe they don't have to. I kind of feel like Andre Smith is as good as gone. I think that he's asking for money that you would pay a high-level left tackle, and the problem is the Bengals may not think he's worth that, but I think there's teams out there that think he is. And finding a good tackle in the NFL is not an easy thing to do, and I think that he'll get the money that he's asking for, and it won't be with the Bengals, unfortunately. The thing that frustrates me the most, though, is when you let that happen. The Bengals came into this offseason, and if you re-sign everyone you have to, you just have to fill the holes that you had last year, which would be, an extra running back, a safety, maybe another wide receiver, linebacker, stuff like that. But when you let your best players go, you just create new holes that you have to fill right away. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, you have this wall that's, you have this dam that's leaking, and instead of, mortaring shut the holes, you're just putting bubble gum in there and just hoping it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, or you're putting one finger in one hole and then another.
Yeah, you're letting another hole.
Yeah.
Another leak spring. So you get my damn reference. So, but you're letting another much bigger leak spring, and it's frustrating because if they can retain Andre Smith, they don't have to worry about drafting a guy like DJ Fluker in the first round. They can open that position for a guy like Kenny Vaccaro or whoever you want. You know what I'm saying? But if they let Smith go, and if they're not confident that Anthony Collins can get the job done, then you got to grab a tackle. I would think.
Right. I mean, if at some point, if they're going to let Andre Smith walk, the money or a good portion of that money that would have been spent on him should be then used to either find his replacement in free agency, or another pretty big-time player at another position that they need, linebacker, safety, wide receiver, running back, what have you. You know, I do see them signing a veteran tackle, whether it's re-signing Andre Smith or getting one of the bigger name guys out there to replace him if he walks. Go Loadholt, Sebastian Vollmer, I think, is available. Yeah. So a couple of big boys out there that'll replace him. I don't know. I don't know that Andre Smith's going to get his $9 million. He'll probably get somewhat close, but we've seen it time and time again with the Bengals and their own guys. When it comes time to free agency, they said, well, hey, we'll let you test the market. We pretty much know how that's going to end up.
Yeah, so, it doesn't work out well.
It usually results in the guy walking, unfortunately.
Yeah,
so
it does. So
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll just have to kind of wait and see what happens, and that makes me worry next year about Michael Johnson. If they can re-sign him to a long-term deal before he's an unrestricted free agent again, because if you don't next year, then you have to make a decision between Michael Johnson and Carlos Dunlap. You know.
Yeah.
They both have the motivation. They're in a contract year, and you know, you don't want to lose either of them really. But hey, another thing that we should touch on is Wallace Gilberry. They obviously re-signed their special teamers. They also re-signed defensive end Wallace Gilberry. He was third on the team in sacks with 6.5 last year. It was announced they re-signed punter Kevin Huber, and then it was long snapper Clark Harris, and then I think the next day or that night it was they chose to re-sign Mike Nugent over Josh Smith, and then Wallace Gilberry.
Josh Brown.
Oh yeah, you're right, Josh Brown. What do you think about who they've re-signed so far? I mean, obviously there's really not much to dislike about it. They had to re-sign the guys, but you know, they started with their kind of the low priority guys, if you want to call special teamers low priority, even though they're some of the most important players.
Yeah, I like that they kept the guys together, the special teams guys together, though. You know, especially the snapper and the punter. I mean, those are two guys that have just been playing good football for him over the past handful of years. Nugent, I'm mixed emotions on. You know, there's times where I really like him. There are times when he trots out there and you just know he's going to make a pretty solid field goal. Mm-hmm. I don't like the injuries, and I really liked what I saw out of Josh Brown last year. So, yeah, you know, technically you're keeping the same core of guys, special teams guys together. Your main three guys, your snapper, your kicker, and your punter. You're keeping those guys together, which is a big, you know, a big plus for the team. A lot of people like the Cedric Pierman signing. I do as well. You know, I think he's good depth, and he plays special teams pretty well. That probably means Brian Leonard's gone. I personally really like Brian Leonard, but you know, his role has kind of diminished over the past couple of years. So you know, you can see the writing on the wall there a little bit with that signing. And then Gilberry's a good rotational guy. He'll probably get even more time this year. I don't know with him re-signing and the signing of Aaron Maven and you know, a couple of other guys that are there. I don't know what that means for a guy like Jamal Anderson, especially if they bring back Robert Geathers. You know, if you remember, Gilberry last year was brought in to replace Jamal Anderson after he went down with an injury. So I don't know what that necessarily spells for Jamal Anderson, and if you release him, he could give you a little bit of extra room under the cap. But, I mean, that's kind of what they've done so far. They've signed, I guess, the quote-unquote easier guys for them to sign. They were important guys for them to sign. I was happy pretty much about all of them. And, you know, hopefully they do some more work.
Yeah, you know, you can't be unhappy about any of them. I'd forgotten about Cedric Pierman. You know, that was a big deal too. And you're right; he's a great. You know, he had some good running back or good depth at running back. He's also a great special teamer. You know, if nothing more, he'll just kind of push the guys ahead of him. You know, I do think they're still going to draft a running back, whether it's a complimentary guy or a, you know, all down back. So, but I think the big thing for Bengals fans to be braced for is tomorrow, when 4 p.m. rolls around, there's going to be some news of some free agent signing with other teams. It's going to happen. Some big name guys. We could see Mike Wallace sign somewhere. We could see, you know, whoever signs anywhere. It'll be, you know, big name guys. Don't expect the Bengals to be in the news tomorrow. I think that it would be very unwise to hang all your hopes on the Bengals grabbing some, you know, Wes Welker or somebody like that, because it's just not going to happen. And instead, brace yourself for some little bit of news this weekend and maybe next week. That's just how the Bengals are. That's how they have been for a long time. I'm not expecting them to break that trend. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, to me, I think if you re-sign some of your key guys, going forward, you have Adam Jones, Terrence Newman. I think if you at least sign Adam Jones there, that's a good fill, and that's a good need that you need to have. I like the idea of Thomas Howard coming back. I don't know how healthy he is at this point and how effective he'd be going forward, but he's been, his little over a year that he's been on the field for the Bengals, he's been an effective player for him. At that point, if you do bring him back, then you're probably moving Burfict to the middle, I would think. But that would be a guy they probably want to look at. I think though, if they re-sign some of their key guys, be it again either Andre Smith or one of the other big tackles if he decides to walk, if they re-sign Adam Jones, Terrence Newman, I could go either way with. I think he played serviceable for him last year, but I think either between the guys they have behind him or potentially drafting another guy, bringing in a street free agent, they could probably find someone to play just as well, I would think. Could be wrong about that, but again, I see the pros and cons of bringing back Terrence Newman. And then I think if you go outside your own walls here, get yourself a veteran wide receiver, maybe one that has returnability. You get a linebacker, and maybe even a running back with just a couple of years' experience. Early on, we talked about a guy like Chris Ivory from New Orleans, just another guy to have in that stable. Last year, they carried 4 running backs. You get a veteran, you have Pierman, you have Green Ellis, and then you draft a guy. I think you got 4 solid guys, maybe Boom Herons in that rotation somewhere. So, and then I think if you look at a safety free agent, I think they've shown that that's what they like to do. They like veteran safeties. They don't really go for them too high in the draft. So I think if you kind of cover some of those areas with some middle tier guys, and then you retain most of your own guys, I think you're in pretty good shape.
What's going to be funny is tomorrow 4 p.m. will roll around and we're just kind of sitting there waiting for news of other teams, and we'll see it all come across Twitter in one big flash. Bengals sign Wes Welker. Bengals sign Andre Smith. Bengals trade for Adrian Peterson. all the way across, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, I'd love to write an article how the Bengals signed Wes Welker. I think that we'd have
a signing of that caliber, right?
Yeah, a signing of that caliber. Maybe not Wes Welker, because I think we'd have our priorities completely out of whack if that's what we did. But a signing of that caliber would be a lot of fun tomorrow, and I hope they give me a chance to do that. I just don't see it happening. But I think that we're still in good shape. I'd rather be in the position we're in right now than be in the position where the Steelers are in, where they're having to guys who can be. James Harrison's got some years left, I think. Just maybe not a ton, but a few. And, he's going to be productive for someone else. And the only reason he's gone is because he costs too much money. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather be in our position than the Steelers. And I think that we're still in good shape. We'll just kind of see what happens. But, yeah, tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So 1 p.m. Anthony time. That's right. And
speaking of West Coast, what do you think's going on with Carson Palmer? Is he gone?
I don't know. They sunk so much into him. They paid him. They gave up a first-round pick and a second-round pick, which they're still paying for this year. We have their second-round pick this year.
Right.
God, I don't know, man. I really don't. I would think that he would stay out there. I almost feel bad for him. I really do. Almost. Not quite, but almost. But I'm an Ohio State fan. I am. I don't like to admit that very much, just because everyone hates Ohio State fans. Ohio State fans are the Pittsburgh Steelers fans of the college football. we can both agree on that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't think Terrell Pryor has it in him to be that good. I watched that guy drop back in the pocket and under pressure just lob up some random throw when he was after his third year of starting in college football, and I think he'll do it in the pros too. So I would think Carson Palmer will be out there, but you never know what's going to happen with the Raiders.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to watch him sit on his couch and watch football for the rest of his life.
Yeah. And then speaking of Buckeyes, Beanie Wells, the running back, was released earlier on Monday. So is that a guy you'd like to potentially see here as competing for a spot?
If we didn't have Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, I'd say sure. But, I think Beanie Wells had some injury problems. I liked him in college. I just don't think there's a need for him. There's no point in bringing him out here and paying him just to compete for a spot. You have Green Ellis. Green Ellis is really good for what the Bengals need him to be good for. Short yardage, red zone, grinding it out. They don't need a Beanie Wells. They need someone much faster than Beanie Wells. A little bit faster, smaller, and shiftier. So, no, not really.
Okay.
I don't want to hate on what do you think? I don't want to hate on the Buckeyes anymore. I'm going to get shanked tonight in my own day. So.
To be honest, I just think they need to inject all kinds of talent that they can at that position.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how productive Beanie Wells could be. I do know he's had injury problems. I do know that the Cardinals had a horrendous offensive line pretty much over at least the past year, which didn't help him any, obviously. Like I said, there's likely going to be 4 running back spots that are going to be open. And, Green Ellis is going to have one of those. Cedric Pierman's probably going to have one of those, and that leaves 2 other spots. Potentially Boom Herron, if they like what they saw out of him last year and this camp. Like I said, I wouldn't mind a veteran coming in and competing, and then get one of the better backs in the draft. Kind of be the guy to get a lot of carries as well. So I wouldn't be opposed to it because at one point I believe, gosh, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago? He had a pretty productive year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he had a good year. He was on my fantasy football team.
Yeah, he had a pretty productive year. So, if it's that guy that shows up, heck yes, bring him on. But it hasn't been that guy for the past probably 2 years, I think. So.
Yeah, and competition is a good thing for any position other than. I don't think there would be any point in signing another guy telling him you're going to be the number 1 receiver because that's obviously AJ, or signing a new guy to replace Geno Atkins. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
But competition is good at any position. So if that was what they wanted to do with Beanie Wells, I just personally think if you're going to sign a running back that you need, not a running back you already have.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
I hear you.
Yeah. But they got I don't know. It's going to be a busy day tomorrow. The new league year begins tomorrow, so it's no longer 2012. Well, obviously it's no longer 2012, but the 2012 season is officially over as of 4 p.m. and the 2013 season officially begins. And we're what, a month and a half away from the draft?
Yep.
And then after that we got minicamp and all that.
There's no off season in the NFL, buddy.
There is not, absolutely not. That goes to show people sit down and watch. Being at the Combine this year in person was awesome. Have you ever sat down and watched it? Just watched it straight through?
Not straight through, but I've watched a considerable amount of it. But yeah, I don't know if
your eyes bleed. Your eyes start to bleed, and you just get so bored, But that's the thing. It's just millions of people tune in because that's the guy I like, and that's the guy I want to watch until my team doesn't select him, and I get really depressed. So. But I don't know. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? I think that this time, I think we did good time wise this time. I don't think.
I think we did too, and we're still chatting away.
Yeah, I know. the last few we've gone like feature length movie.
Yeah.
It's funny all day. You've seen Aliens, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, been a long time, but yeah.
The pulse thing that they use to tell when the aliens are coming makes it.
Yeah.
I hear that in my house. My wife hears it too. I don't know where it's coming from. It's freaking. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Are you hearing it now?
Huh? Yeah,
Are you hearing it now?
I don't know. Can you hear it?
No.
Okay, well then I might be going crazy. I don't know. But
I'm not in your house, so I don't know.
That's true. Let's end this before we just start talking about weird stuff. So
yeah.
Thanks for watching. Tune in next time. We'll have more stuff to talk about, I'm sure, even though the Bengals probably aren't going to make any big moves over the next couple of days. But the new league year just begins tomorrow at 4 p.m., so stay tuned. Follow us on Twitter at Cincy Jungle. Follow Anthony. Excuse me. What's your Twitter?
At CJ Anthony CUI.
Excuse me. You can follow me at J Garrison SBN. and just keep up with the biggest news, and Hoo Day.
Hoo day.